Okie dokie nerds. So we're going to have a quick video where we recap the Vintage Challenge on the 12th of August. For the challenge I registered the CradleVine version today. I played a lot of Squee last week and felt like a change. And I thought this looked like it would probably just be better than Dredge. Dredge I don't feel like I get too much agency. So yeah, I quite like this one. I quite like it. I have like a love-hate relationship for it. When talking to a friend before the challenge, I said, I don't know which flavour of bazaar to play, and he said, what are the advantages of playing green versus Squee? And I said, Squee, we are, just scared of the needles and the graveyard hate, and the tabernacles, which we can, build a game plan around. Whereas when we register this, we're generally just afraid of magic cards being played against us. The main advantage of this deck is that we have a good plan with mana producing lands. You activate Bazaar of Baghdad, you put some dudes into play, but you also have these 4 hex drinkers which are really good in like the mono white sort of deck and the creature interactive decks like Lotus and Bug. And then you got the Collector Roofs, which are good against the artifact based combo decks. But they can also just catch some people cold as well, like the Tinker decks. Sometimes they have quite a Mox heavy hand, and you play a Collector Roof and basically get 3 Stone Rains for 2 mana, and then they also can't Vault Keep you and this sort of thing. You still got to do a bit more usually than a Collector Roof. So the big interesting thing about this list, and I think this is very similar to what came out of the prelims during last week. We've got 3 Bloodghasts and 3 Hogak as well, and I don't really like that. But the main advantage of playing the mono green deck in the past was that you'd only have the 4 Vengevines. So then your opponents would bring in their graveyard hate, and most of the time it did nothing. This is a bit more overexposure to the graveyard. 10 cards is quite a lot, but it plays well. It is actually very good and very powerful, as we may see on our recap through the tournament. Some of the lands some of the lists are trimming on lands a little bit. I'm on 18. I played 3 Boseiju main deck and 1 basic forest. The basic forest is good against Ghost Quarters and Boseijus, and if you take the initiative of mono white. So one cool thing is that they Boseiju your bazaar, and their tabernacle now doesn't work right. It does work to a point, but not so much. So that's the deck. Post board, we've got 4 Leyline of the Void, 2 Endurance for the graveyard and the Doomsday decks, 4 Force of Vigor, because we're not actually playing the main deck here. We've got these extra thick creatures instead, like the Bloodghast and Hogaks. 2 Mindbreak Traps, 1 Archive Traps, Combo and Doomsday, and then 2 Dismembers for like our Mono White and our Bug and Lurist matchups. Okay, so let's go to the games and we'll recap them there. Right, round 1, game 1 against Fingers 1991, and see how quick this goes. Yes, and then it's a mirror match. Fingers exiles half their deck, and we're on the play. So we draw triple Vengevine and miss on the Once Upon a Time. Okay, so first Bazaar activation, we draw 2 cards, we draw a Once Upon a Time. We miss completely on getting a hollow one here, which is a bit of a shame. So in this spot, I can't remember what I take. I take a lizard in case, take a lizard in case I get another activation, because that confirms that next turn I can activate, discard the root while I play a Cradle, play a Collector Roof, bring back 3 Vengevines. So I still play out the hollow one, because if this gets Wasteland and I don't have a hollow one, we're in a real bind. So at least this gives me some board presence. And then my opponent takes their turn, and it's just Once Upon a Time, get a Root Wallet, and then Wasteland you. So that puts us in a real spot. And then they make 2 Lizards, discard a Hogak, pass back to us, and we play a Collector Roof, which is highly unexciting. But yeah, this matchup, I just remember it being a case of our opponent showing us how we should play our deck. Rah. and we can't keep up. So we lose. Lose round 1, game 1. Let's go to game 2. So round 1, game 2 against Fingers, 1991. We mulligan, we keep. We bottom a Hex Drinker there to try and draw some Vengevines, try and get some big pressure into play. And then we feel pretty good. 2 Lizards and a Hollow One is quite a lot of pressure. Strip Mine is going to be good for their Bazaar of Baghdad's. They cast Once Upon a Time, they reveal a Hollow One, and then they say, you're a real nerd, you need to do bigger and better than that. So here's my whole squad. Rah. We trade off, probably bad, but I'm just thinking of trying to keep the damage down. So discard some cards, cast some cards, and really we're just trying to catch up and get back to parity. So yeah, trading off as much as we can, I think. Maybe taking 8 here, or maybe a chump block will get in there as well. So yeah, little chump trade off with the nerds. We probably don't have Force of Vigor post board here. And yeah, so we just lean into the Bazaars and just aim to spin as much as possible. If we ever hit double Lizard, we're getting back a Vengevine. But yeah, their opening draw, 2 Vengevines, 2 Hollow Ones, a free Lizard, really powerful. And then they Endurance me, bring back a Vengevine, and I think we probably call it a day there. Or maybe I'm taking a double spin. But we got bodied really hard. But, you know, as is tradition, I never win round 1 of any event ever. If we top deck a land here, we're in a spot where we might be stable, but we don't, because land drop at the end here. So if that Bazaar activation, we spin into Hollow One, Leyline, Bloodghast, Hogak. If we top deck a land for our draw step, then we can play a Bloodghast, we can tap some stuff, but we're just so dead. So that was round 1, getting wrecked by the mirror. Okay, round 2 against the power 9, and we have got quite a powerful hand here. We are on the draw though, pretty concerning. But Bazaar, all the Moxen, Collect Roof, Bloodghast, Hollow One, like everything we could dream of. And they come at us with quite a turn. So Lotus, Vamp, top, activate top, play a Mana Crypt, and then Tinker for Sphinx. So our incredible hand looks pretty weak now. So it is quite the game to try and get back up to even. We play out all the nerds ever. So that's our board. A very powerful turn 1, but it's not doing anything in the face of a Sphinx. It's also doing nothing in the face of Time Vault Saga, which they've just assembled. So it's pretty concerning for us. We activate Bazaar, we discard some stuff that we don't need, so an additional Bazaar, a Hogak and a Ruby. And I think this... Yeah, so here we're going to discard... So here I made a pretty big mistake, and I strip mined the Academy to keep them off mana, even though they've got no cards in hand, rather than strip mining the Saga. My logic was that I've got a Collect Roof, so they can't Vault Key me. But I didn't think through the other implications of a Saga where they can get a Needle and name Bazaar, or Beseiju and Beseiju. If they get Needle and name Beseiju, they really put us in the ground. So we spend our turn casting Hogak, and I think I don't cast this Hollow One, or I hope I don't cast this Hollow One, as I go looking for a Beseiju. Casting Hogak is hard, so leave 2 lands in the graveyard, don't think that makes a difference. So Saga goes up to 2, they bink us down to 8, it's our go, and we go, yeah, so we hold the Hollow One and discard it to the Bazaar activation this turn, because we need 2 cards, right? We need exactly Cradle, which is the mana producing land I had in my hand, and then we need exactly Beseiju. So we cast Once Upon a Time, looking for Beseiju, we find it, we Beseiju their Sphinx, and now the game is very close to ours. They do have a blocker here, so they can make a 2/2 to get in the way. So we make some slightly more careful attacks. They're at 30, we're at 8 after the Sphinx damage. And then they get another activation. And then they concede the game. So I think we're supposed to, we're definitely supposed to strip the Academy, strip the Saga rather than the Academy. But yeah, with the holding that hollow one on that crucial turn to ensure we've got enough discards the next turn to find Cradle, to play Cradle, activate Boseiju was pretty good in taking game 1 here. So round 2, game 2 against the Power 9. Our opener has got a Bazaar, it's got a Lotus, it's got green card Vigor for their artifact stuff, Collector Roof. So I can't imagine we're sending this one anywhere. And their opener this time is a little less powerful than last time. So a nice draw here. Once upon a time, we might be able to go and find ourselves something to put in our graveyard. We do find a Vengevine. We cast a Lotus. So we cast Lotus there first because we want to give them no information that we've got a Bazaar. We want to give them, although it's pretty easy to decipher we've got a Bazaar, but we also just want to play it before we play our Chalice, and they don't know that we've got a Vengevine, because if we activate Bazaar, discard a Vengevine and some other stuff, then it's really face up that the Vengevine's coming back. If we cast the Lotus afterwards, then they might be able to interact with us there. But yeah, so I led on Lotus, which I think is good. And let's see how I sequence this, because this is interesting, because we might want to hold a green card for this Saga. And I can see just playing Lotus Collector Roof sort of thing, but I don't know if I just completely lean into it all, or if I hold the green card. Yeah, no, I hold the green card, I like that. And then they dismember our Vengevine, which is fine. We have to fade a Tabernacle here, and then next turn we have to spin and try and find a mana producing land. They don't have a mana producing land, which is pretty exciting for us, getting them with the Chalice there. And we just draw a Wasteland, and I can't imagine we take too many other game actions. So this guy gets dismembered as well. And here we've got a decision as to how do we interact with this Urza's Saga. If we wasteland the Urza's Saga before it goes off and they play a Tabernacle, our Collector Roof dies, which could be an issue later down the game. And then if we force a Vigor the Urza's Saga, we're not getting maximum value on that. But I think the fact that we're in their upkeep means we're about to see a Force of Vigor go onto the stack, and if it gets countered, we'll wasteland it. But if it doesn't get countered, then we've got Tabernacle protection, or protection against a future Saga, something like that. So yeah, Vigor comes in, takes that out. The Tolarian Academy is very sad. And then this gives us a bunch of spinning as well with our Bazaar, which is very fun. Empties our hand, gives us 2 good activations here where we can just bink stuff into the yard. A Lizard increases the clock a little bit. Because this is the issue with this deck, right, is that you're playing Vintage and your payoff is putting a 2/2 and a 1/1 into play. Like, it's kind of distressing at times. Here we keep the Forest to bring back the 2 Bloodghast. They're hasty, put our opponent to 1. There's a Chalice on 0, so they can't develop into Academy. Their Ancient Tomb doesn't do anything. We've got Wasteland for Tabernacle, and that's game. So that was a cool match. I liked some of the spots. Like, I liked holding the Hollow on game 1. I liked the Force of Vigor instead of the Wasteland in this game. There was a point I didn't agree with so much though. But I can't remember what that was. Never mind. But yeah, round 2, 1-1 now at this point. So round 3, 1-1 in the challenge after getting bodied by Fingers round 1, and we're up against Unicorn Paradise, who I know at this point in the tournament is on mono white because of a screenshot in Discord, but it doesn't affect us too much. That we're gonna be mulliganing basically to a Bazaar of Baghdad almost always anyway. They're on the play, so we're going to find out about it as well. So Ancient Tomb, Mox Pearl, Trinosphere. Pretty difficult start. Like, our hand was insane, absolutely insane. If we were on the play, right? If we're on the play, then their Trinosphere's cold. It doesn't do anything. We wasteland them to try and develop an idea of drawing some lands and keeping them off of plays. But they play a wasteland, which is awkward. So I feed them a bazaar because it doesn't produce mana. And like, if we can get this Hexdrinker into play before they can do anything particularly reasonable, then we're off to the races. But give them a Cradle, and then they play a Thalia. And there's a few draws here where we can try and like if we hit the Urborg green card, then we might be in shape. But as it stands, I think we take one more draw step and call it a day. So that's what turn 1 Trinosphere does to you. Okay, round 3, game 2, they reveal a Chancellor of the Annex on the play. We feed it an Emerald. And then we play a Bazaar. And we think for a while on this one. So we hold the Blazing because we need to draw something anyway. We discard the Vengevine, we discard a Cradle, we got a second one. And we discarded a Wasteland over a Boseiju, which is fine, I think. So, yeah, I remember that turn took me a good minute and a half sort of thing. But let's see what they do. So it's turn 1 on their turn. And we've just got Wasteland go. So we go to our turn and we crack our Lotus for red. Everything we'd ever dreamed of. Sacrifice Lotus, cast Blazing. And then we get to play the Boseiju. Oh, the Cradle, yeah, no, that makes a lot more sense. Bring back the Vengevine, put 2 counters on the Hexdrinker, and send for 4. So holding it worked out well because we had the Lotus. They play a land, we top deck a Wasteland. They plough our thing, and that little spot there, we Wasteland the Emeria that they've paid 3 life for, right? Their turn was land untapped, bolt myself. So it was a pretty face-up plough at that point. So we Wasteland them before trying to get the Hexdrinker up to the final counter. They have a choice between Hexdrinker and Vengevine. This way, going into their turn, we've got Boseiju untapped should we need it. This time, the land comes in play tapped. And we just develop into the board. Their cards don't do anything. We win the game. So they kept that hand purely based off of like Wasteland Plough, which seems like a tough sell. But hey ho, there we have it. So we'll go to game 3. Alright, round 3, game 3 against Unicorn Paradise with the CradleVine deck against Mono White. We take some mulligans, we keep a 6er. They have a Leyline, which does affect us at the moment because my boarding is going to be probably keeping Hogaaks and Bloodghasts because they are good in this matchup. And then they just play a tap land. So I think I decide that Savannah Lion isn't strong enough for the vintage format. Oh, I just decide to Wasteland them. Yeah, okay, that seems good. So Wasteland is dope there just because they've not done anything powerful. They've mulliganed a fair amount as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so they went to 5. And then, yeah, we don't want to expose the Bazaar of Baghdad because we have very little discard equity, right? We like the second Bazaar, we like the Boseiju, we like the Hexdrinker, we like the Trap. And then, yeah, just wasting them off their white source can sometimes be quite good. So they follow it with a Wasteland. I imagine we're going to go Bazaar this turn. Yeah, so we Bazaar, and we decide that they've kept a slow one, and the Trap is not getting anywhere. They waste us. We've already got another Bazaar rolled up, and now we've got a 1/1, which is quite the clock. So their hand was white source, Wasteland, Leyline, and now we can start shooting super bad cards into play. strip their planes, get our pom-pom. Caracas is fine. Very slow build up. Trying not to activate the bazaar in this spot. And I imagine that hollow one changes my mind. They solitude our hex drinker. Wasteland, collect roof, dismember. Just flood the board. Make it so that they've got to pay actual factual mana for their spells. Wasteland you, Containment Priest doesn't do anything against this deck anyway, really. And then just completely bury them. So a bit of like an exchange of resources early, where we trade some lands for lands. We get informed of our 6 draws, and then yeah. But this is one of those things about this deck, right? And this is why we play it. Is if we look at the cards in my exile zone, so all the cards we've seen through our double bazaar hand, is exactly one Hogak that uses the graveyard. Nothing else interacts with it. So the Leyline at the Void doesn't really do anything against that draw. I would not. And then the Containment Priest, if they didn't have the Leyline, would stop exactly one Hogak, right? Oh no, it wouldn't stop the Hogak because I would cast it. So yeah, this is the advantage of it. Is their graveyard hate is very weak against you. All we did is use Bazaar as just a little burst of energy and a little burst of mana for our hollow one. The rest of the time we just cast creatures. Good games. 2-1 going into round 4. Round 4 we're up against Zeno 1, who how low do we go? 3 cards go back. Is there a way of rewinding on this? I don't think so. So 3 cards go back. We keep a hand where we're on the draw against an unknown opponent. I did look up their history, and they don't play a great amount of vintage. They come in every now and then, and it was a bit of a collection as well, but most recently mono white. So I think that's why I kept this, because it's going to put a big threat onto the board. If we get lucky, then we get a CradleVine, and if we don't get lucky, then we get a Bloodghast next turn, sort of thing. So Verdant Catacombs quickly means it's not mono white, and then Sorcery Speed Ancestral into turn 1 Bowmaster, which is difficult, and then a Deathrite Shaman, which is worse. So we've not taken a game action yet, and we're already dead. And our Once Upon a Time finds us absolutely nothing except for damage and +1/+1 counters for them. So that gets forced, and it's over to them. And I wonder how much patience I felt like I had at that point. I get a Forest wrecked. So yeah, spin and concede. If we hit a green lizard there, then we get to bring back a Hogak and a CradleVine, and the world is great. No, it wouldn't bring back a Hogak. I imagine they'd probably just kill our Bloodghast. But that opener, Ancestral Lotus, Bowmaster, very good. So we'll go to game 2. So game 2 against our bug opponent in round 4. We've got a sick one to start with. They've got a Leyline. We cast Once Upon a Time, get ourselves a Hex Drinker, and then we pass the turn. Look at that for a play. So why would we pass the turn here? We've got flash threats. We give up on Hollow One this turn, but we get the instant speed Root Wallers. Hogak doesn't do anything because there's a Leyline, and this means that unless they're proper aggro and their turn 1 is play Tabernacle, then we're going to get to play Root Wallers, and we're literally a lock to get mana out of our Cradle for our Hex Drinker. Needle means that we've got responses. We discard Hogak and some cards, some lizards, so they make their way into play. Needle names Bazaar. Our Bazaar is dead, our Cradle is alive. Long live the Cradle. We just develop into the game. Get in for 2. We could Besage one of them, but no desire to at the moment. They play a walk. They wasteland our Cradle, play a Deathrite Shaman, and pass the turn. We send our Hex Drinker to the sky, play another one, get in for 4. And once again, this is the power of the deck. We don't use the graveyard much. We don't need to activate Bazaar too many times. So that's all gravy for us. And then, yeah, our opponent conceded with the Narset on the Narset activation. They activate See Nothing. But yeah, so a classic case of why we play this version over Squee or Dredge. You activate Bazaar once and you can win a game just from that without needing too much graveyard interaction or too much of anything else. So that was a good game 2. Let's go to game 3 and see what happens. So game 3 against the bug opponent. They're on the play, which is terrifying. We mulligan to 6. We put Bazaar on the bottom there, which was questionable, but I just decided that I've got enough threats that this one Bazaar activation should get us there. We cast Once Upon a Time, we find a hollow one, and then we lean aggressively into it. We put 2 lizards into play, bring back the Vengevine, attack for 4, and then cast Ruby Hollow one, I imagine. We held the green lizard for the Force of Vigor. I think that's kind of standard. And then, yeah, so we've presented a very good board presence. They strip mine our Bazaar of Baghdad. They cast another Deathrite Shaman. And then they eat our Bazaar and cast a Tarmogoyf. Tarmogoyf is frustrating, but we can still do some attacking through it. So, play a Wasteland, which we probably just need to hold for Tabernacle at Pendrell at this point. Opt not to attack with the Root Waller, because if they block with the Tarmogoyf, then it'll grow. Oko Thief of Crowns comes down, makes them a 3/3, which makes attacking a little bit harder. This time we've got Dismember, and I wish I'd Dismembered pre-combat here, because the way it plays out is I end up not getting in for 3 damage, which could be useful. And then they play another Tarmogoyf, which is now bigger than my 3/3 hollow one that they've just elked. And this whole game we just struggle to grow to generate green mana at any point. Because green mana at any stage of this game, and suddenly the Root Waller's a 3/3 as well, and we just make our way around them quite comfortably. Yeah, and this is just classic bug games. They just about get there. We go for a rando Wasteland. Can't attack because 3/3 is smaller than 3/4. We Force of Vigor their 2 artifacts because we're just trying to restrict them on mana to keep ourselves in the game. They can make some food. And we slowly just get bled out of the game, I think is the crack here. Man, these replays are always really fast until suddenly there's nothing going on, and then it proper slows down. Kill your stuff, kill your stuff. Make some food. And this is one of those frustrating games that you do have to just play out, because like, if we top deck Bazaar, then we're bringing back 2 Vengevines. If we top deck a Cradle, then we're going to be able to play an Endurance. If we, draw a Hogak, we might be able to. A green source into Hogak, then we'd, be able to put a 3/3 Elk into play. But none of that seems to happen. Then they play a Narset. Oko goes to 13 loyalty, so on our opponent's next turn, Oko will have the highest life total in the game. We draw a green source. It's incredibly late. We play a Root Waller just to try and get back into the board a bit. It will be able to trade with stuff at some point. And then our opponent starts to get aggro. 2 foods make their way in. We just take it because we've got bigger and better dreams of going wide. And another Vengevine rolls off the top. Deathratch Shaman makes some mana. Fatal Push puts some lizards into the graveyard. And then Oko's on 15 hit points, and our opponent comes in with all the thick guys. And we try to shrink their graveyard because it's got the artifact in it. But Tarmogoyf is still a 2-3 because of our graveyard, so we go to exactly 0. And we lose. So 2-2. Now, after the defeat to Bug, we lost round 1. This is our punishment. So round 5 now, and we are up against Tom Basketball. So we expect it to be some sort of Lurus pile, just Lurus mid-rangey control stuff. And we're 2-2, and we're fighting to end the day on a positive record. And game 1, we get probed and tundra'd, which is fine. Once upon a time, get spell pierced, and Vengevine gets haste. So we put the Hogak back. Hollow One makes a Vengevine. All standard stuff. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Merchant Scroll for Ancestral. Rather than wasting the Bazaar, which is fair. The Bazaar probably doesn't do a lot more now. Yeah, put some stuff into the graveyard. Helps make a Bloodghast, which is going to help make a Hogak. So that was a kind of interesting spot in. We're going to cast Hogak and then Wasteland them. We're going to Wasteland the Tundra so they can't cast the Ancestral that they've just scrolled for. But we didn't discard the Vengevine here because we need the 4 creatures that are in play, and then we need 3 of the creatures that are in play, I think, and then the 3 cards in the graveyard, 4 with Wasteland. So that way we get to attack with Hollow One, tap a Lizard, tap a Vengevine, put a Hogak into play, and then they're just very, very dead. So let's see what happens in game 2. Round 5, game 2 against the Basketball themselves. They're on the play. We're on the draw. We've got a Hogak. We've got a Dismember. And Bazaar of Baghdad. Plains, Sapphire, Lavinia. Awkward. Respond with Hollow One while you can. Grab a Boseiju. It makes mana. So we cast a Hex Drinker and it gets misstepped. Tom goes and gets a Lurus on turn 2. Attacks with Lavinia. Can't cast any of these cards, but we can put a Vengevine into play. So 1 more land and we can get to Dismembering Lavinia. For now, we'll just put them to 12. Not feeling great because we know they've got Lurus. There it is. So this is our 1 turn because they played a Caracas and a Lurus. And I think here I am still casting if I hit the land here, I am still casting the Dismember on Lavinia because it would give me the opportunity to play all these cards. As it stands, we get Wastelanded. They have a Caracas for our Dismember, and then we can't cast any of our spells. But yesterday when I was playing, it was very much in my mind, I'll kill Lavinia for a turn, and then I might get to play some stuff, but maybe it's wrong actually. Maybe it's just got to be the Lurus at that point. Who knows? Doesn't matter. We're very dead. Let's go and see how the match pans out in game 3. Okay, game 3, round 5. We're 2-2 at this point. We mulligan to 6 cards with a series of powders on the way through. Hogak goes to the bin. Hollow one once upon a time into... Oh, I missed it. Some cards. We get a lizard though. We play Mox Emerald. Do we just cast the Root Waller here? Yeah. Tasty. We played the Root Waller because that's the one they know about. And then it comes to us. They've got a basic island and a bauble on the go. They ancestral themselves. We cast Hex Drinker. We mill ourselves with Bazaar. We tap our creatures. We play exile all the cards in our graveyard except for Vengevine. Cast Hogak out of the yard. Vengevine comes back. Hogak comes in. 4-ball you. Use every single card we had access to this game. And that's our board state. Tom takes a draw step, takes a fetch, plows a Hogak and concedes. So that was pretty close to the nut draw there. We used all the resources available, everything's tapped, everything's done, and we win the match on turn 2 there with, yeah, up there as one of the best draws of the day. So that's the end of round 5, and we go into the final round to try and end. So round 6, game 1. Round 6, game 1, we're up against Green Ash, who we expect to be on Doomsday. And then we keep the nut draw here. Right, we're going to put a large amount of power into play. On turn 1, we decide to bottom the Bloodghast because we don't think the game's going to go on long enough. We draw more power. So yeah, I bottom the Bloodghast there just in case the game goes on beyond turn 2. But pretty thick. They cycle a Street Wraith, declare to us that they are in fact on Doomsday. Attack for 4. And then present lethal and say you'll go. What can you do about that? Well, what can Doomsday do about that? Turn 1, double power, time walk, preordain. Seems like a good place for them to be. Get another land drop. Black floated, cast Gush, play a Petal, cast a Doomsday. 5 cards in hand when they cast a Doomsday here. They go to 6, they cycle a Street Race, go to 4, Ancestral Lotus, cast a Thoracle, and we're dead. So, pretty cool game. Each player takes a turn. Their turn was better. And yeah, Bloodghast isn't doing a lot here, but if on that Bazaar activation, so I put Bloodghast on the bottom at the beginning of the game. If that Bazaar activation draws the Lotus and I cast the Collector Reef, right, we are winning that game. Look at all their artifacts. So yeah, cool game, but this is one of your worst matchups when you register this version, just because they know you don't have the permission. Sideboarding though, we do get those traps, so let's go and see what happens there. Round 6, game 2 against Green Ash. We keep another turn 1 Lizard hand, or turn 1 Vengevine hand. Vengevine multiple Lizards, keeping a high quantity of cards in your Bazaar deck as well. High skill plays. So the boys come in, we get our damage on. And then here was fun. This is an interesting spot as well. So we've got a lot of creatures in play. And one of them's going to be a Collector Roof, turning off all the artifacts. So we can just Lotus out the Oof. But instead what we do here is we Lotus out the Serum Powder and then cast the Collector Roof. This way. So doing it this way, yes, our Serum Powder's dead and it looks all fancy smancy. But if our opponent plays a Tabernacle, you can stack the triggers so that your Collector Roof dies first and you'll get to keep 1 free Lizard. Okay? If you do it the other way around, where you just crack the Lotus and play the collect a roof, we only get to keep a Vengevine. So this does provide us with that extra piece of mana, but you just need to make sure that you stack your triggers correctly when you come to getting Tabernacled. So here comes a Polluted Delta from our opponent, and a Mox Jet, which can't be activated. So no Tabernacle is good for the home team. We spin, probably discard everything that's not a Bazaar of Baghdad there yet, and then play it, give it a quick spin, Cradle Wasteland to the bin, and attack for 8. So they fetch, they Ancestral themselves on our end step, and then they play an Underground Sea, cast a Preordain, and concede the game. So yeah, I liked the Serum Powder, the Lotus Serum Powder play, just because if we get tabbed, we keep 5 power in play rather than 4. But other than that, present your creatures and see what your opponent says about it. Game 3, match 6, last one of the tournament. 3-2 at the moment, playing for outs to make top 16 at this point. And we're on the draw against the horrific matchup. So we keep a nutty 7 again, because we are just that incredibly lucky. Opponent goes Dark Ritual, Doomsday, and we feel kind of helpless here. Our hand doesn't really do anything. It does absolute jack all against Doomsday. So we need to hope at the moment that they keep a very, very zero reliant hand or pile and make a pass the turn pile. So that's our hope at the moment. Opponent does make a pass the turn pile, so we get action, and we draw a red lizard. Here we draw the world, Mind Break Trap and Endurance. So we discard 2 lizards and a Boseiju, holding the green lizard as a Endurance pitch, play a Hollow One, play a Chalice. Opponent plays Scalding Tarn, which they'll then tell us in chat that they're supposed to be playing Tabernacle in that spot, and then that way we get to develop our Cradle, get in for our 6 points of damage, put our opponent to 3. And now we've got Trap and Endurance up, but they've made a pile where they don't need to play into Mind Break Trap at all. So they fetch their land, they put Thassa's Oracle onto the stack, and they've got 2 cards in deck. And then we evoke Endurance and shuffle them back in, and they're now dead on board. So the turn comes back to us. They're at 2. We've got 3 creatures. Here we evoke the Endurance to play around the days, and we get it done against Doomsday. Pretty lucky, but sometimes that's how it works. So yeah.